All right, let's just talk. So this is Noelle Randall Talks, where I just talk. This is not a script. This is not any research. This is where you get to hear me unfiltered, I should say, not filtered, and I just talk. So, even no editing. So, let me just get right into this because I literally get a lot of questions that I find very intrusive. I love that you guys ask me questions. This is not about you. I'm talking about just people in my life that I run up to. And one of the things that I realize is a lot of people don't know how to deal with intrusive questions that are just too much. Like, how much money do you make? How much money is in your bank account? Are you getting married? Are you and her together? Are you in this, that? Like, people just asking like intrusive questions. And so this is how you should answer intrusive questions without being rude. So somebody asks you an intrusive question, like, for example, how much money do you make? How much money do you have in your bank account? People will say these like really intrusive questions. That's a question. You would say, well, why do you ask? Because that's the first thing. Somebody asks you an intrusive question, a question that is they should not be asking. It's in your business. Hey, do you do this? Hey, is that, who is this? Just something that you find that is just none of their business and you don't want to answer. You can still be a polite person. You can still be, a decent person. You don't have to just go rude on them. So the first thing you ask is you just smile. I do. And I say, why do you ask? And that usually kind of puts them back. Because, like, why are they asking? Are they just being nosy? Are they like, I want to know, or is it, let me be real with you, a power move? A lot of times people will ask you intrusive questions like, where you said you were working on that thing. How's that going? Oh, you said you were day trading. How's that going? Oh, you started a new business. How's that going? They're asking you a question so that they can kind of put you down. And you may know this. And so you really have to start taking your power back. Like, this is some soft skill that Noelle Randall was telling you as a multimillionaire. There's those hard skills, like what to say, how to call people, investing in real estate. That's on my other channel, my main channel, Noelle Randall. Me just now, this is just unfiltered, like telling you some soft skills of success. And that is, you're going to have to learn how to answer intrusive questions without being rude. And so one of the ways that you'll do that is by simply immediately asking, why do you ask? Get them to now answer a question. Don't just start answering their questions. Who are they to ask questions to you? So just say, hey, why? Smile. Why do you ask? And then a lot of times, especially if somebody asks me about like exact numbers for money, like how much money do you really have? Like, such an intrusive question. I'm going to smile. Why do you ask? I just want to know. I do not talk about that. There is nothing in that for me. And I always say that there is nothing in that for me. I just answering that question, there's nothing in that for me. And I say that all the time because a lot of times questions that people ask me, there's nothing in me answering. I don't get anything out of it. Like me telling you how much money I have in my bank or how much money am I worth or, am I married? Is that my child? Are you this? Who is this person? None of that benefits me. And I don't want to talk about that. So you can actually set a boundary. This is your opportunity to set a boundary. Okay. So if you want to, you can really set a boundary and say, I don't discuss that. Okay. After you ask, why do you ask? Let them answer. And most of the time, I just want to know. I don't want to discuss that, but I'd be happy to talk about how much money you make, or I'll be happy to listen to how much money you have in your bank account. I'll be happy to listen about how much money you have. I say those things. Like, I'm happy to listen to your answer to said question, but I don't want to answer that question. That's like just something I don't want to discuss. That's not something I discuss. So if somebody asked me, for example, about my kids or my spouse or my divorce or my marriage or my this or my that, I don't want to discuss that. I don't discuss that. That's not something that I discuss. And I'm going to tell you who does this the best. And you may love her, you may hate her, but one Beyonce, she will let you know that is not something that I discuss. People can't ask her questions. She don't really even do a lot of interviews. She keeps her privacy, and so she keeps her power. It's a very powerful thing to be a private person. So let's talk about that for a second. You got to get deliberate on what you are comfortable talking about, because a lot of times people will hit you kind of, out of the blue with a question that you don't want to answer, or they kind of catch you off guard. And I have been caught off guard with someone asking me something intrusive. And the best thing I'm telling you is just ask, why do you ask that question? That is it gives you a chance to think about it, and it gives you a chance to hear them answer the answer. Is it, I was just curious, or I really want to know, or I admire things that you do and I would love to be able to, you know, copy some of the things that you do. They may give you a compliment. So it's no reason to just go rude right from the start. There's no reason to even just draw that boundary. Like I said, this is an opportunity after they answer for you to draw the boundary. I don't discuss that. That's not something I enjoy discussing. No, that's not something I discuss with other people. No, that's not something I discuss outside of my attorneys. Or no, that's not something I discuss outside of my marriage. Whatever. It is not something that I discuss, is you setting that boundary. But that does sometimes come off a little bit rude. Let's be honest. So you have to reserve that for who it's necessary for. And it could be, just somebody that, off the street, or really could be a family member. A lot of times I find that moms and dads and grandparents and family members and cousins, they can be a little intrusive because you do have that familiarity with them. You do have that friendship. But then at the same time, there's some questions that they should not be asking, and it's just none of their business. You know what I mean? And you have to get really clear about what is none of their business. And for me, there's a lot of stuff that I feel is like just none of your business. Noelle Randall, I got a lot of boundaries. I got a lot of stuff that you can't say to me. You can't talk to me about, that I don't want to discuss. And that's okay for me. That really works for me, especially as I become more of a public person, as I'm going to airports and people recognizing me, as I'm at gas stations. Then yeah, I'm going to have to draw more boundaries than someone that doesn't live in the public. But as you start to come out and you decide to be on social media and you're promoting your business or whatever, or even yourself on social media and things like that, you are going to have to get really clear about what your boundaries are. If I'm teaching you about real estate and business, then yeah, I will share that I am a multimillionaire. But if you say, exactly how much money do you have? That's not really a question I even could answer. Like, first of all, I wouldn't have very much money if I could just count it up every day. You have different assets and they go up and down in value. You're doing transactions. So you may have a windfall the one day, and then within 120 days, you're doing a 1031 and buying something else. So now all of that cash that you had is gone. So again, not a question that I am answering, not a question that I'm getting into. It's intrusive. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I do that. So I put myself out there for that question. So I'm not just going to go crazy on somebody that asked me that question, because that's a part of my brand. But you asking about my divorce or my marriage or my kid, that's outside of what I'm teaching on. So I don't need to discuss that with any and everybody. So I will draw a very clear distinction. No, I don't discuss my children. No, I don't discuss my son. No, I don't discuss this, that, or the other. Again, you get to decide that. But it is very, very easy to answer intrusive questions. And the easiest way, I'll say it again, is, why do you ask that question? When they ask you an intrusive question, gives you a chance to think, gives you a chance to kind of calm down too. So that's an easy one. Why do you ask? You should always, if somebody asks you a question, why they say guilty people answer questions with a question, because it does, it gives you a chance to think. But if you're not a guilty person, but it's just something intrusive, or they're coming into something that's uncomfortable for you, that is okay. You get to be uncomfortable with someone's question. So yeah, why do you ask? Then let them answer. Okay, I don't discuss that. Oh, there's nothing in answering that question for me. Or no, what is, but you can tell me how much you have in your account. You can tell me about your marriage. I'm happy to listen about that. And that's an easy way to be super likable and still have those boundaries. And I think that is the one thing that I could tell you unequivocally. Noelle Randall is lovable. She is likable, but she also has all these crazy boundaries that I'm explaining to you right now. But at the same time, is no reason to set a boundary in a rude way. So you can answer an intrusive question or respond to an intrusive question without being rude. You do not have to go, straight B on them or straight A-hole on them. No. Some people, maybe, depends on the situation. Sometimes somebody is, or they'll press after you say, no, I'm not comfortable talking about that. Or I don't say I'm not comfortable. I say, I just don't. Okay. But you might use the word comfortable. I'm not comfortable discussing that. And because it could you be in the middle, maybe you're in the midst of something, like you're in the midst of a bankruptcy, or you're in the midst of a divorce, or you're in the midst of your child going through a court case or something. Again, something really, really personal for you that you just don't want to. And you can set a hard boundary, and maybe you don't care about being rude. There are situations like that. But for the most part, I'm going to tell you, you can easily respond to an intrusive question by asking a question and I come out of it very lovable, very likable, putting it back on them, smiling. You know what I'm saying? So I often smile and say no, I'm not doing that. No. So it's so funny. Like, you really can say no to someone in this really positive and nice way. Like, no, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that. No, unfortunately, I can. No, unfortunately, that doesn't work for me. Like, you really will start to find a way to be super powerful and not rude. And it's going for a certain segment of us, you probably watching, being rude and just coming off as that straight B, that's not usually the best route. Okay, we're usually not coming from a position where we are a majority of something. You know, you're usually almost always in a minority. You're usually always newer to a thing than someone else. Okay, just because of our race and our gender and just historical things. And again, I'm not blaming any of that, but just saying we're cognizant. Okay, me as a woman, I'm very cognizant of the rooms that I'm in. I have to be powerful in those rooms, but at the same time, that is walking a fine line. Some people call it code switching. Some people call it selling out. You know, however you want to define it. I don't define it as that. I do believe in excellence, you know, and I do believe you can be a powerful person without being a rude person. So I'm telling you my real opinions on how I navigate as a African American, Caribbean, you know, descendant, immigrant parents, things like that, how I navigate in a very dominated, male dominated world. And some of the lessons that I've learned, some of the things mentors have taught me, you do have to set your boundaries. They will test you. They will ask you questions they should not be asking. They will be asking you all kind of questions about your business and where you grew up, and making, you know, having different assumptions inside of some of those questions. Stay with me. I'm really cooking here. They have assumptions about your upbringing or where you went to school or your parents or what they have assumptions. And so they ask questions sometimes in these assumptions that are super intrusive and super rude. And you still have to be a queen. You still have to be on that throne. You still have to reign, okay, as the queen. So you can't just jump off your throne because they insulted you or they asked you something that was way too intrusive or way, you know, into a boundary or triggering for you. You still have to remain a queen, a king, and stay on your throne. You don't jump off your throne and start throwing tomatoes with peasants just because they've now triggered you by asking you something really, really personal, or something that they know may be going on in your life in order to, you know, expose you or to kind of bring you down, or, you know, kind of pull your power away from you. A lot of times questions about what you're doing, about what you're working on, about how much money you have, about your status, about where you're going with something that you're working on. Those questions are designed to pull power away from you. And they're very successful when you actually answer those questions and you get upset. Okay? Don't get upset and don't answer the question. You get to remain in power. You do. You're born powerful. I want you to always remember that. So Noelle Randall Talks, if you subscribe to this channel, please do. It's going to just be me talking about especially stuff that's going on in my life, stuff that I'm seeing in my students. I'm just going to give you some raw and unfiltered opinions and guidance from someone that has been in the dirt, lived in a basement, you know, broke, bankrupt, bad credit, to someone that is a multimillionaire and has been so for many years and is just navigating new terrains and just the soft skills that are required to maintain that and maintain your sanity and keep growing without letting people pull you down. We've seen so many tragic stories of someone going up and coming right back down because of that inner work, those things inside of that jealousy, that rage, that anger, that resentment, those low frequency emotions that we have can start coming out, especially if someone triggers you or upsets you by trying to pull your power down, asking you questions they shouldn't ask you, getting in your business, getting real detailed, especially when they have no interest in telling you those things about themselves. And so this is where you get to establish what you will and will not discuss and be real clear about it. Okay? I'm going to be real. I'm going to take a moment and tell you, I want you to be real clear about that. I also want this channel to be more of one where I can have some real unfiltered discussions. Okay? So type me in the comment. Tell me some intrusive questions that you have been asked, how you responded, what you think of the guidance that I've just given. Again, always stay on those thrones. We do not come off. We're not throwing tomatoes and potatoes and tomatoes and potatoes with peasants. Again, we're going to stay on our throne and be the queens and the kings that we are. All right. This is Noelle Randall. We talking. Let's talk.